come in through our email.
Okay, I think I'm on. Everybody hears me. So, my name is Colonel Brian, and I am your garrison commander. And I want to welcome those folks that are here with us tonight in person, as well as those folks who might be out watching our live stream on YouTube. With me on stage tonight is Major General Davis. He is the commander of Cadet Command and Fort Knox, as well as his Command Sergeant Major Jeremiah Gann, who is the Senior Enlisted Advisor for Cadet Command of Fort Knox. And over here I have Knox Hills Project Director John Bredehoff. We have some updates that we're going to talk through tonight, mainly with Knox Hills and renovations and the such that are going on within our different neighborhoods. And of course, though, our main objective tonight is to hear from our residents. Let me take this off. Is to hear from our residents any questions, concerns, or issues that they may have. We want to hear it from you. You would think that myself as the garrison commander and Mr. Bredehoff with Knox Hills Lindley should know everything that's going on in the installation, but there's a lot of times we don't, and there's a lot of times that we find out about things that we can get after only because we have folks that provide us input. Now, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, sir, for any other opening comments.
Well, thanks, OB, and it's good to be here tonight. And I know I had the opportunity to go around and shake everyone's hand. If I didn't, please, afterwards, feel free. I'd love to thank you for coming tonight and then shake your hand. But again, it's great to see everybody. Good evening. Just ran right from the office over here, but this is the right place to be. This is the 13th, if I'm not mistaken, Forks Housing Town Hall, the 13th that we've had on this post in the last year and a half. So that's very good. And that's telling us that we're, whatever we're doing based on the feedback we're receiving for our wonderful residents. And that's what it's all about. I'm a resident of Fort Knox, and I want to make sure that we all have the right quality of life, the right facilities, and everything safe for our families. I think we've solicited for some questions, and those have been captured, and we're going to answer those later on. Then we'll take some additional questions both online, and thanks for those who are watching us via YouTube. And then, bottom line, we'll take as many questions as we can. And if we can answer them all, we certainly will, but we'll certainly get back to you if we can't answer all of them. With that said, before I turn it over to my wonderful Ranger buddy, Command Sergeant Major Jeremiah Gann, I just want to say to all of you, and I'm going to put this out twice, we are going to put out soon a Fort Knox command hotline. Is it up? It's the final slide? Well, we're going to bring that slide up. We now have the phone line. We have the person that's going to man the phone. We have the message for everyone, and we're going to plan to pass this out, and we'll post it out on every gas station pump, every AFES aisle, every commissary aisle. You're going to see General Davis and Command Sergeant Major Gann, and I want you to tell us if we're doing something, what we need to do better and what we're doing right. So I really want to be a two-way conversation, and I really want to interact with all of the wonderful residents. So I'm going to put it in every housing area. Every time you turn a corner, you're going to see our faces with the hotline ready for you to call and leave a message. I'll stop right there. My Ranger buddy.
Thank you, sir. I do want to hit on a couple of things to make sure this is value added for everyone. It's in the audience and both in the audience and online. Hey, first, we generally want to hear from the residents. So if you have questions or concerns, please step forward and get them out in the open. We can't make adjustments or get better if we don't know where we need to make adjustments at or what to fix. Second, let's keep our comments focused on the matter at hand. Please be respectful and focus on the facts. We are all on the same team. We all absolutely want the same outcome. So let's work together to get the resolution that we are all happy with. Lastly, please share what you learned here tonight with others, whether it be your soldiers, your neighbors, your friends across the street, whatever the case may be. It's incumbent upon all of us to stay informed on matters affecting us, and it's also imperative to deal with the facts. So what I say is I would ask that if you're not part of a scenario, firsthand information, that we don't talk about secondhand hearsay. Let's talk about facts, not hearsay. Because oftentimes things get lost in translation and it doesn't really have a positive outcome for anyone in the end. And lastly, like I said, thank you for your support, and I'm going to turn it back over to Knox Hills.
All right, well, thank you very much. And just to kind of echo what they have said, you know, one of the biggest things that we like to do here at these town halls is definitely interact with the residents, whether it's online, whether it's here in person, and get your feedback. And I believe I say it at every town hall, and I like to start off and reiterate this. Please don't suffer in silence. As General Davis and Colonel O'Brien alluded to, you know, we try to be out there and be aware of everything, but we can't be everywhere at once. So your feedback is really important to us, and we are, you know, happy and ready to discuss any issues that you have. We have teams on standby ready to address immediately if there's any life, health, and safety issues that we can get after that absolutely immediately tonight after the town hall is over. So besides that, just really appreciate everybody's feedback. So I hope everybody had a great holiday with Thanksgiving, and we've got the holidays, you know, right around the corner coming up. So we wanted to start off with a little bit of reminder about the rules, unfortunately, around holiday decoration. And we don't put these rules in place to be the Grinch. We do it very much for the purposes of safety. So if you look at a lot of the reminders and the tips that we have, they're going to be based around safety, preventing fires, preventing residents from falling off the roof, and so forth. So that's really what these are aimed after. We're not trying to be fun killers. We just want to make sure everybody has a safe holiday and gets to enjoy that with their family. So just a couple reminders. You can use clips and tape to put up you know, temporary holiday lighting. We do ask that you don't use nails, staples, things that can penetrate the roof and create leaks in the future that could damage the home and you know, prevent problems for you and your family down the road. We also like to make sure that whether it is extension cords, the lights that you're putting up, the decorations and so forth, that those are UL rated and that they are, you know, exterior qualified. And you can check this usually on the box of any decoration, any lights, anything else that you buy to make sure it's rated to be outside in the cold and the ice and the snow and anything else that comes up. We also want to make sure that we only place lights on the first story, again, mostly to prevent falls and keep our families safe as they're out there. Any self-installed lighting, we just want to make sure that they're, you know, properly used according to the manufacturer's recommendations, which typically are right on the box. So, and then lastly, we want to be careful to practice a little bit of energy conservation. So we don't want to have anybody go too crazy with their lights. General Davis, you know, don't put a light of your face for the hotline up there and get a bill like Clark Griswold from Christmas Vacation. So just be a little bit conservative on that front. And then continuing to speak about weather, you know, I think everybody recalls we did have a pretty significant winter storm last year. It went relatively easy, and I think we put out a lot of information. We didn't have a lot of damage, you know, comparatively to what happened in Texas and so forth last year. So we do like to put out reminders of how to keep your home, you know, safe, how to prevent any issues during freezing weather. So we, first and foremost, if you're going to go on vacation, if you're going to leave for an extended period of time, which we roughly say 10 days or more, please call your community office and let them know. And it's mostly so that we can drive by and make sure you know, that there hasn't been a frozen pipe that busted with water running out of your windows, you know, or other issues. It's really just so we can keep an eye on it for you and make sure everything is in good working order. And if, unfortunately, anything does happen, we can address it and prevent it from being worse for you when you return from your, you know, family vacation. Make sure you take water hoses off the spigots outside. That's a big one. It can absolutely lead to frozen pipes and water leaks. Make sure that you keep your windows locked and so forth. You know, you don't want to open up the doors and windows while it's 30 degrees outside. That's definitely not healthy for the house, and probably having all that cool air is not the best for your family either. So just checking your doors and windows, particularly if you have double hung windows. One thing that escapes some folks, sometimes when you work those, you got to make sure that the top sash is also secured in addition to the bottom. So it's a good thing to remember and look out for as the season turns cold. Make sure those are tight. Garage doors, even though it's an unconditioned space, the garage door does have some insulation value, and it can really help prevent that cold air from moving further into the house if you keep that closed when not in use. When we do get down to below freezing temperatures, which does happen here in Kentucky sometimes, just keep the water dripping, open up your cabinets, it lets the hot air in, it prevents pipes from freezing. Very minimal amount of stuff you have to do, but really keeps things working properly. The last, I would definitely recommend that you don't go below about 68 degrees on your thermostat. Again, it's really just to help prevent any frozen pipes from occurring in your house. And then checking the seals around doors and windows, and the importance of changing your filter in your HVAC. A lot of people don't realize how important that is to keep it functioning properly, to keep the air flowing. And we do provide filters and other stuff, so really easy to do, and will really save your HVAC and make it more functional and more comfortable inside your house. So just keep those in mind as it gets a little colder. As the weather turns, definitely and we've seen a lot of leaf drops here in the last couple of weeks. So Mainscape, our landscaping contractor, will be out to address those. So let's make sure that if you have a bunch of leaves in your yard and you want to get those picked up, just rake them up to the nearest street, right on the curb edge, and Mainscape comes around about once a week to pick those up. So I think on average it's about 7 days. It could be different depending on when you rake, but they'll be there within a 7-day time period to pick those up. Also, fire pits are a big thing in the winter, but again, with that theme of safety, we just ask everybody to be very careful. Please don't use gasoline as a starter. You know, just basic safety tips. Keep it away from flammable things, and make sure that you don't dispose of hot ash in those plastic trash cans that get provided, because that can actually ignite, and we've seen that in several instances, and people don't realize how even after a fire is out, those can still help combust that trash can, and then you put it up next to the house and it can catch the house on fire. So just, again, be very thoughtful, be very careful with that. If we have an event like last year with snow and ice, we will definitely follow basically the same protocols. So we send out updates on the road conditions regularly. Mainscape will get out and they clear all the roads. We do clear the main sidewalks, but the sidewalks around your home are the responsibility of the residents and the families. So make sure you're paying attention to those and being careful if it gets slick. We do the main roads first, particularly to make sure that school buses can operate, the DES, fire, police can get around where they need to with the most heavily used routes, and then we come back and clear the secondary streets afterwards. So there could be a little bit of a difference between where you see the main streets get cleared and in the second. So just be aware they'll be back around to clear that up. So we wanted to talk a little bit about water testing tonight, because I guess there's been a few questions. We heard it, I think, in the last town hall, and we've had a few questions since then about the water, particularly because Fort Knox is creating a new water treatment plant, and as they switched over to Hardin County, one of the things we've heard, and I know Doc Stevens has spoken about this before, is there's not currently a water softener in operation, so that can lead to a little bit of dry skin. It can have a difference in the taste, oddly. I did not realize that until we talked about it before. It doesn't alter, the water's perfectly safe, but it can have a little bit of a different taste, but it's nothing to be concerned about. The water treatment plant for Fort Knox is actually under construction and estimated to be complete in January. When that comes back online, they will have a water softener again, and it will return back to what it was before. So From a safety aspect, the water is tested regularly. So Louisville Water Company comes down and they test the water about once every 3 years in a big test where they go around and test a lot of the installation. But they also address monthly with sampling that they do. You can see these results. There's nothing secret about them. The website is hcwd.com/water quality reports. It's there for anybody who is interested in to go and view those and take a look. If that's something that you're concerned about, want to have some peace of mind, you can go look at those results and rest assured that they've been tested and that the water's perfectly safe. Next, we wanted to talk a little bit about radon testing. So Knox Hills does provide a lot of information on this. We put it in the leasing packet because living in Kentucky, we are in an area of the country where you can have some radon accumulation. So we make sure that we put those facts and so forth in the leasing packet for every resident that comes and lives with us. So there's a lot of detailed information in there. If you have other questions, you can certainly come up and ask afterwards. But what I really wanted to talk about today is that we monitor for radon indefinitely on a regular basis. So 5% of the homes that we turn in our what's called change of occupancy maintenance, or COM for short, we test those with what's called short-term charcoal tests to ensure that the readings are in line with basically what's acceptable by the EPA standards. If for some reason we have any that come back above the actionable level, which is 4.0, we will then go in and do a long-term test. And the long-term test is roughly, I believe it's 90 days, and we do that very specifically because radon is a little funny. It can change with temperature, with weather, with the season, and so forth. So the idea is to get an average so that we know that we are getting an accurate reading of what it really is in that home over that period of time, as opposed to just that particular 2 days or whatever where we ran the short-term test. So if that comes back over the EPA actionable level in that long-term test, then we will move to mitigate. And that can come in a variety of forms. Some of them as simple as sealing cracks, going around and just making sure that there aren't entry points in the foundation, in the slab, at the joints where the studs meet the slab, all the way to installing a full-blown mitigation system with PVC pipe and a fan that will route the gas up and away from the home. So just kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit. Certainly we'll be around afterwards. If anybody has any questions and wants to come talk about it, we'll be here to do that. Next, wanted to remind everybody that there is a Garrison pet policy in place now. It was put in place in February earlier this year. It is synced, and we at Knox Hills have made sure that our resident guide is aligned with that Garrison policy. So the two, both the Garrison policy and the resident guide, are 100% aligned in how we look at pets and what is acceptable with pets here on the installation. So we do have 2 pets per home. That has not changed. That has been in place for many years now. And we want to remind everybody that there is responsibility on the owner to always control their pets. So that means if you take them on a walk, make sure that they're leashed, put on a lead. We want to make sure people don't leave their pets in the backyard 3 months at a stretch, especially when it's cold out there. Make sure our furry family members get in and are able to stay warm. And basically just, that they're not unsupervised and unleashed. That's really the bottom line with that. We also ask that everybody is respectful when you take your dog for a walk. And everybody likes surprises, but they don't typically like pet surprises left in their yard. So if everybody's a little bit respectful when going on a walk and cleaning up after your pet, that would be very much appreciated. Additionally, unfortunately, not all animals are acceptable as pets. Baby tigers are cute, but they grow up to not be so cute. So we don't allow exotic animals. We don't allow wild animals, farm animals. There are some restricted dog breeds as well. If you are interested or curious about what is allowable and what isn't, you can certainly look at the resident guide or look at the Garrison Pet Policy, or contact animal control, and any one of those resources can help you. And I do think it's important, and the reason why we talked about it at the last town hall, the reason why we're talking about it again here, is we have had, unfortunately, some incidents with aggressive dogs that have bit or become very aggressive towards other animals and other people, unfortunately. 3 incidents since February in which we had to, unfortunately, remove the animal from housing and the installation due to aggressive behavior. So I'm certainly a dog lover. I know other folks are, and I think the best way to prevent that is just to keep them on a leash, keep them controlled, and make sure that we follow these policies. All right, next. Very happy to say that the resident portal and the Rent Cafe app has been very, very successful. So we've got over 2,000 registered users, which is over 93% of the folks that live with us, which is a huge, huge number. We've got a lot of benefits in that app. You can submit service requests, and as opposed to simply talking to somebody over the phone, you can also submit photos through that app. And that's really going to help in the long run, because a picture's worth 1,000 words. So sometimes, and I'm certainly guilty of this, we don't always describe things exactly the way it really appears. And so a picture can help clarify what that issue is. It can help our techs prepare and make sure they've got the right parts and the right tools when they come out to address that issue. So very, very helpful. We also, Knox Hills has paid the fees associated with doing online payments. So you can pay your rent online, no fees, and in fact, we've had over $2 million in one-time payments made with this app since its inception. So I think that's definitely a good benefit as well. Excuse me. All right, so now we get to my favorite part, which is really the development update. So talk about this every time. The first handful of the 13 town halls that we've had, I got to talk about what we were planning, and we're now in the stages where we're executing. And so as I get to sit up here, I get to update on not only work that is ongoing, but in this particular instance, I get to update you on a lot of projects that are actually 100% complete. So a lot of our electric meters, the roofing in Pritchard Place, the insulation in Anderson Greens, a lot of work in Moran Manor, the roof, gutters, sewers, HVAC, appliances, as well as the roofing, HVAC, and paving in North Dietz are all complete. That represents a pretty significant amount of work done to improve the housing, the neighborhoods for soldiers and their families. So we hope you all enjoy those. I think they've come out really well, and we've had a lot of good feedback. And we're going to continue on with that. So work that we have in progress, we're moving right along with the renovations in North Dietz. We've got about 196 out of 256 of those completed. So little ways to go yet. We expect that that's going to move on into the first quarter after the change in the calendar year here. So probably around March or so is what we're targeting to be completed with the renovations in that neighborhood. We're very close to having the historic neighborhoods completed. We have a few door surrounds left that we need to take off and replace, and weather, hopefully working with us, we'll get that done in relatively short order. And then Littlefield Loop, we've really just kind of got started in there. The turnover rate, because we do these renovations in between occupancy so that we don't have to inconvenience residents any more than necessary, means that happens at a little bit slower pace. So those are about just a little under 30 completed to date so far. But That's not all, right? So we had our original out-year plan, and as I think anybody who has attended previous town halls know, Lend-Lease secured a $1 billion loan and spread out that money across all the various Army projects that they have. We were fortunate enough to get another $80 million out of that, and we call that the Army Integrated Out-Year Development Plan, or AIODP for short. So this is the bigger plan for sure compared to the original out-year plan. It's going to include a number of new homes, about 64 in total, all 4 bedrooms, which I'm excited to get started on. Those are currently in the design phase, so it'll be a little while before we see folks swinging hammers, pouring concrete, and framing those homes. It'll be a little bit of time yet, but really excited for those to come here in the future. What we have started in this particular part of the program are the HVAC renovations, the roofing renovations, and the paving operations in Chestnut Glen. Those are really just getting started, but I expect they're going to start to move very quickly here in short order. We have also completed or in the process of completing a prototype on the interior renovations, and expect those to start in earnest after the first of the year. I do know there are some questions about how that operates. We do the renovations in between occupancy, and that is primarily done again for safety reasons. The extent of the work that we're doing in these renovations isn't really practical to do while they're occupied or safe to do while they're occupied. So that's why we wait and do that in between. It's also much less inconvenient for the residents because you don't have to essentially move everything out of your house and move back in later. So it's also a 3-year project. It'll take us about 3 years to get through the whole project. And then we've got some additional upcoming work in other neighborhoods, including similar renovations in Matthews. We're going to have a lot of paving and infrastructure upgrades, a lot more HVAC and roofing upgrades coming throughout a multitude of neighborhoods, but those are going to start a little bit further down the line, and that's why I haven't gone into as much detail on those tonight. All right, lastly, upcoming resident events. So actually starting next week, Monday, we'll kick off our Home for the Holidays 5 Gifts of Christmas. We did this last year. I think it was a lot of fun. That'll start here on Monday, so keep an eye out on Facebook. We'll basically have daily updates, and then at the end, I think if you get all of the answers correct, you'll be able to enter in for a chance to win all 5 of the gifts. Couple of other Facebook contests coming up. Holiday decoration contest coming up the 13th of December. Please make sure you follow the rules that we discussed earlier. If you're not in compliance with those, you may get forfeit from winning any prizes. And then lastly, there in December is going to be our holiday cookie recipe contest, which I wish was in person and we got to judge, but unfortunately that will be and Facebook, so we'll have to have smell-o-vision or something so that we can figure out how to award that. And then a handful of events coming up in January as well. With the New Year, New You, we will have our DoD Tenant Housing Satisfaction Survey coming out in January, and then a couple of other contests on Facebook and with photos, the Dress Your Pet and the National Lego Day contest. Last couple of slides here are really related to points of contact. So there's a lot of folks here tonight in person, but I recognize that not everybody can join or even view online. So we always like to make sure that we present all the various options you have to contact, whether that's DPW, the leadership hotline. You can contact Army Medical Command with questions. Knox Hills has contact information as well on the following slide. There's a multitude of ways that you can reach out to us, and we stand by ready to receive any questions and address those as they come, regardless of how you contact us, whether that's by phone, whether that's in the community office, or following one of these links that we've posted up tonight. And then lastly, I'll just close again. We've got a team here on standby, ready to address any concerns. And we look forward to hearing from you all. Thank you very much. Sir?
Go ahead and jump to the very last slide. Next one. There we go. There you go, sir. No, I just put it up there, so we've got it. We've got it up there for you. We have received 7 actual questions that were sent in ahead of time. I'll read them, and then John will go ahead and kick off with answering those, and then we'll get to opening the floor here to the audience. So, question number 1: will screen doors be reinstalled on homes that were recently remodeled in North Dietz? And if they are, is there a projected date for the install?
So right now, there are no plans to replace those screen doors. We did upgrade the exterior doors when we did those renovations to ensure that they are energy efficient, and right now there's no plans to replace those screen doors.
Okay. So why are rules not enforced across the board? My mom had to have paperwork and an approval for a ramp, which we got after she passed away. But a place on Estrada in North Dietz has a homemade ramp that housing definitely didn't do. The ramp is definitely unsafe as it's made with what appears to be plywood and appears warped already. Someone definitely needs to address it.
So first and foremost, I am terribly sorry to hear about your mother's passing, and my sincere condolences to you and the rest of your family. We did look at this issue. Obviously, we do our best and strive to make sure everybody is treated equally. So we always ensure that people follow the proper procedures. We did go back to review. You know, we're not perfect by any means, but we definitely strive to be. We went back and reviewed this issue, and from what we can tell, you know, the prior approval was conducted, was requested and received prior to the ramp in question being installed. So I think in this instance, you know, from what we were able to gather, the proper policy and protocol was followed. Certainly, if you notice anything that doesn't seem right, we are happy to receive that feedback. We'll certainly investigate it just as we did in this case, and go from there.
All right. So next question. I'm a Waterfall resident, and my rent was substantially increased without much notice, even though no improvements have been made to my apartment. Would someone in the know please explain how this increase was decided upon and justified?
Thank you. So this question actually comes up a lot. I think I've probably answered it or similar variations in previous town halls. And the reality is it's not a simple answer, but there's a couple of main factors that contribute to how we calculate this, right? So one is related to the BAH, and Knox Hills doesn't have really anything to do with setting what the BAH amount is. That is something that is completely run by the Army. We are not involved in that, but that fluctuates every year, right? It can go up, it can go down, and I've seen that happen in the past. So that's one factor that can contribute to what happens. The other thing we do is we do market rent studies, for lack of a better word, every month, and analyze, you know, what do our, you know, rents and things look like compared to what's happening in the market. And if you look at the numbers, the outside market has actually had about a 15% increase due to demand outside the gate. This is really actually lines up very closely with the BAH increase that we've received over the last couple of years. I think we had a 7% and a 6% the year before that. So that's very closely, albeit we are still actually under what is happening with the market outside the gate. The last thing is there has been a change in the actual lease that is really called the universal lease, and that is part of the Tenant Bill of Rights and things that the higher Army and Congress have asked us to do. So that's not even necessarily directly in control by Lend-Lease or Knox Hills, but in executing that, that does change the structure of how some of the rent and concessions and so forth work. So those are really the three primary factors. Happy to discuss further if you know, anybody has continued questions about that.
Okay. Why are some tenants permitted to leave trash receptacles on the street or sidewalk for multiple days in a row?
So I think the answer is they're not. It unfortunately does happen. You know, per the Knox Hills resident guide, you know, the expectation is that they're brought back to the home the same day that trash is collected. We do have team members that go out and review and place calls, but we try not to be like the soup Nazi from Seinfeld. We like to warn people before we go out and start assessing fines, so we do follow up on that and try to make sure that everybody follows those rules. And it is our community members, staff, drives every neighborhood multiple times per week looking for it, and then working with residents when we do find something that needs to be addressed. But as we mentioned earlier, we can't be in all places at the same time, so we definitely welcome that feedback. And if you see something that doesn't look like it's in accordance with policy or have concerns about something, just let us know and we will absolutely get after it.
Okay. What is housing or maintenance going to do with the ongoing issues with the Chestnut Glen double units, to include bathroom repairs, peeled ceilings, mold around the tubs and inside the shower walls, water damage, old vents, and old flooring in the homes?
As you saw on the earlier slide, we're going to renovate them. We've got quite an extensive interior renovation plan that's going to address a lot of those issues, be it the new HVAC systems we're installing, completely replacing the floors, redoing the tubs and the surrounds in some of the bathrooms, and a lot of other items that are going to take place across all the homes in Chestnut Glen, not just the conversion units, but every one of the homes there is going to receive a very good renovation. May take a couple of units to get around, or a couple of years to get around and get them all completed, but I think it's going to be very good, and we're anxious to get that rolling here in the next month or so.
Along that lines, why can't homes be renovated while residents still live in the unit?
Consistent theme with, I believe, what I've talked about tonight, and that's really safety. The amount of work that we're doing inside of these homes is not something that is really safe to do while residents are living in them. And because of the extent and the time frame in which that they're going to be in renovation, it's also not practical to put somebody up in temporary housing, because this isn't going to be a renovation that happens in a week. It's going to be significantly more than that. So it really is for the best interest of everybody to make sure that we do them while they're unoccupied, to keep everybody safe and minimize the amount of intrusion that is going on for everyone.
So if I can add, that's a great point. I had the opportunity to accompany and go through all of the housing areas, and I've walked in some of the homes that are being renovated. He's absolutely right. Based off what they're doing inside these homes, and I would pass this off to everyone, you do not want to be in that house. It is torn down to the very, the dry walls removed, floor removed. I mean, it is dust. It is everything that would not be safe for a family to occupy that space in. So I just wanted to share that with you. And then on the back side, changing out all of the HVAC and everything associated with it. I mean, I have personally walked through and said I've been impressed with the outcome of what of the work that's happening for our families out there, and it's a complete rehab. This is not just coming in and replacing the stove. This is taking out walls, floors. I mean, if it looks like it has any bit of mold mitigation, that's taken out. The bathrooms are torn apart. So just want to share that with you.
All right, thank you, sir. And for our last question that we received in advance, we are paying for our home to be repaired and upkept, but yet are being forced to move or downsize. Why is that?
So I am not tracking any instances where we have forced anybody to move. We are working very hard to make sure that as we do these renovations, we do them as they become vacant through attrition. We obviously don't want to inconvenience residents, and it's not in our best interest as a housing company to be booting people out of housing. That's sort of counterproductive to what we're trying to accomplish here. So I do know that we've offered some incentives to do move-overs so that we can get into homes and renovate, particularly as we get down to the last handful of units. We may reach out and contact you about that, because we do ultimately have to get in and do that. But I'm not tracking anywhere where we've forced anybody to downsize as a result of the renovations.
Okay. And just for everybody's kind of awareness as well, too, our vast majority of our housing inventory was built prior to 1960. I think it's probably a good place to put it. So Chestnut Glen and some of those areas, yeah, those things have been there for a while. And like I was with the senior commander the other day when we walked through all these things, and just to see what they're doing, you know, putting on the metal roofs, which are much more sustainable, new appliances, new flooring, ripping out carpet, putting down, you know, that hardwood tile in the bathrooms, new faucets, etc. It's a very in-depth renovation of those homes, so they do take a little bit more time. They try to do it between occupancy maintenance or the change of occupancy maintenance, but sometimes that's just not enough for some of these. But we got some great contractors out there who are working through that. If you live in Chestnut Glen, you're well aware that your roads are being repaired right now. We drove through that. There's some that are paved, there's some that are ripped up. One thing we would ask for folks that live out there, if you get a note or something on your vehicle asking you to move your vehicle, please move your vehicle so we can get that road taken care of and get things paved along that lines. And sir, I'm going to go ahead and we'll open up the floor. I don't think we need to do a raising hands or something like that, but if you have a question here and you're in the audience, just please move up to one of our microphones. I'm an artilleryman, and so I've been around a lot of loud noises for the last 23 years, so it's hard for me to hear sometimes. I think your 8 has the same problem, sir. I don't know. But if you have any questions, go ahead, please. Go ahead and come on up, and feel free to use the microphones.
Well, not to put Knox Hill on the, I know you've offered an opportunity for our residents to call if there's a question. Do we have the phone number? I mean, maybe, if not right now, if you have it. Okay, go ahead. That's right. If not, CG hotline.
So there's actually a couple of phone numbers I would give out. So obviously for maintenance concerns, call 502-799-6565, and that line is 24/7. Again, you can also use the app if you're registered for that to submit as well. And if you have community concerns, you can reach out to any one of our 3 community offices. The historic and leasing office is 502-799-6550. If you are in the Dietz area, you can call 502-799-6570. Or if you're kind of on the other end of post towards Oak Park, Chestnut Glen, you would call 502-799-6580. Mm-hmm.
And then I'll just throw in on the Garrison side, our housing service office, Mary Ellen Correa and her team. That is 502-624-2622, 624-8350, or 624-8094. And so feel free, either one of those ways of contacting if you have any issues with your housing. Looks like we've got one person. You want to go ahead and jump to questions, sir? Okay, please, go ahead.
Yes, good morning, leaders. My name is Master Waters. I'm a former resident. I moved out 1 September, and I PCS 10 January. My first question is, how long does it take a former resident to receive a return BH payment for dwelling that was unoccupied? I moved out 1 September, it's 1 December. I haven't received any payment back yet.
I will have to double check on that. I don't know the specific time off the top of my head because it probably depends on the circumstance. But I would say, you know, we have a team here. If you want to come up afterwards and we can discuss that and figure out relative to your specific situation what that time frame looks like.
Yes, sir. Next question. So I moved out due to safety concerns. I'm not here to be controversial or anything like that, but this was by far one of the worst experiences I can honestly say I've ever had with military housing. I was harassed by my neighbor. I brought that issue up doing a sit down. I was told that I was going to be placed in housing about right away because I was living in a hotel. I lived in a hotel for about 18 days before I found another residence that I was able to move into on 1 September. So my question pertaining to that situation is, does a resident's safety matter when it's reported? And what is done by installation and housing to follow up and validate those safety concerns?
Yeah, so safety is our number one concern, and that is why we have a displacement policy. That is why if something happens in the home that we say is unsafe for the family or the resident to live in, that we will put them up in a hotel. We have other housing that is sometimes available too, if it's not otherwise occupied, that we can put residents up in. So it's our number one concern, and I'm sorry to hear that you had issues. Our intent is certainly to get after those and address those immediately. What I can say is we don't do that in a vacuum either. So when we address a concern, particularly anything that is of a nature where a resident or family has to be displaced, we work very closely with our Army partner as well. So once the repairs are completed, they actually have to come out, inspect it, and give us the okay that it is safe to move that resident back in as well. So it's something that we work together on as a team. It's something that we definitely take very seriously. And I'm sorry to hear that you had issues, but it is 100% our number one priority is safety for residents and families.
Yeah, there's another piece to this I want to make sure is covered. There's a criminal piece, harassment. So I want to know if DES and Garrison, are you tracking this at all?
I know, we'll talk with Sergeant Major after this, sir. I'm not familiar with this specific incident. It was happening about the time I did change of command, but if you could just hold out afterwards and let's huddle with, I've got my DES folks here as well as Sergeant Major Fogel, and let's talk through it so I'm familiar with it, please.
Yes, sir. So my last question is for the installation leadership. I'm inquiring in an open forum a sit-down update and status of an ICE complaint that I submitted against Fort Knox Housing on 8 September. I have yet to receive an update. I have yet to be notified or anything pertaining to the issues that I had with post housing.
Okay, like I said, we'll fix it afterward. I mean, just, we'll huddle.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And just to follow up, can you just explain the process? So if an ICE complaint is in, what's our intent as a facility to provide an answer back? 72 hours or?
So if we have, I think it's 72 hours from the time. Now, if they request a reply, then we have 72 hours usually to answer that. And we do track that. I usually get, every month, I get a roll-up of our ICE, well, they're not all complaints, but of our ICE input. And I also get a ticker on who is able to reply within the 72 hours or if there's been other forms of communication to answer that ICE complaint, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen. Lieutenant Colonel Joel Gleason. Maybe this one will be less contentious. But I had a question about the density of playgrounds, kind of how that's set up with playgrounds per resident. I live on the Wilson end of Fifth Avenue. There's a playground that's behind some of the houses, kind of on the point where the street exits the neighborhood, which means that's also the kids are playing right by where vehicles start to pick up speed, and it's a little bit of a blind spot. And then the next playground is quite a bit of a distance down the street, at least in terms of 5-year-old legs. And looking at the child supervision policy, the question is it reasonable to consider maybe a greater number of smaller playgrounds as, kind of community development plans are going? Because I look at that circle at the end of Fifth, and there's a big bunch of open grass, and hey, throw a playground in there. It doesn't have to be a massive one, but that would service a significant amount of families to be able to see, and of course, those are 4-bedroom homes, so you got a lot of kids if you have a 4-bedroom house. Hi, sir. But anyway, just kind of a question about the playground density and whether or not more smaller ones could be installed in the future.
So the answer is it depends a little bit, right? So some playgrounds in, say, older homes that were there where basically the neighborhood and the playgrounds existed before Knox Hills ever even existed, we didn't get an opportunity to necessarily plan those. In new neighborhoods where you look at, where we've come in and built completely brand new neighborhoods like Oak Park, Maple Ridge, the Lead Dietz area, those we are able to more plan and look at hey, density and number of houses per, playground, I think we call them tot lots, but whatever, those are a little bit easier to plan. The issue with going back and revising all that is it's not just throwing in a playground, for lack of a better word, and they are surprisingly expensive. And so when we look at the available funds that the project has, the first thing we focus on is the, safety, health, and well-being of the families, right? So in terms of priority, a lot of that, at least at this point, is going to roofing to make sure they're not leaking, HVAC to make sure people are comfortable, other safety concerns or environmental. And so that takes up a lot, right? And I don't want to underplay the value of playgrounds, certainly, because I do understand that, and certainly understand where you're coming from in terms of visibility, right? It'd be fantastic if you could sit on the back porch with a frosty adult beverage maybe and be able to watch your kids play on the swing set, because I would have loved to have done that when my kids were little too. So completely hear that, but unfortunately it's not as easy as you would think it is to be able to go in and revise those. And the last component is really every dollar we spend has to be approved, right? So if we come back to that priority, we have to get that by, all the way up, in some cases, to Congress to get it approved to do. And playgrounds have been a little bit of a challenge from that perspective when there are things like roofing, HVAC, and other concerns. So again, don't want to minimize the impact of what you're saying, because I completely understand, but it can be a little bit challenging because they are quite expensive, and from a safety priority, it's just a little bit different.
Hey, John, just to tease on that a little bit more, are there any, and I don't know, I know construction in our historical district, there has to be, we have to, go by certain historical preservation, et cetera. Would playgrounds fall into that with the neighborhood, or?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point that I didn't even think of, so thank you for bringing that up. In historic, because it's a historic district, as opposed to just historic houses, yes, there are certain rules that have to be followed that have to do with visibility, sight lines from the street, and other things, and anything we were going to do like that would have to go before the SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Officer, to be reviewed and approved as well. So it's even more complicated in a historic area than it is in
We'll take an old-timey playground with hula hoops and all that.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. Hey, only other thing, the neighbors knew I was coming and wanted to make sure I said thank you. There was a light outside of one neighbor's bedroom that made it feel like they were day sleeping 24/7, and folks came by and put a shield on the back side of that, so the brightness of the street is still good for public safety, but solved the problem. So that was a good solution. So I want
Awesome.
to say thanks
Thank you.
publicly.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Lisa Crooks. I'm a resident of the historic neighborhood, and I just want to first of all say thank you to Knox Hills for the installation of all the new appliances. It's greatly appreciated. It was like Christmas in July, so thank you very much. But I do have one question about the Resident Advisory Board. Currently, the Clark neighborhood does not have a representative, so I wasn't sure if that was by design or is it just simply due to a lack of volunteers?
Do you want to volunteer?
I'm not necessarily volunteering. I know a couple of people who are interested, but I do think it's important, even though it's more senior leaders, there are issues that apply to all residents in the neighborhood, and I think it'd be helpful to have representation.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we have several members from our RAB here tonight. It is not by design. It is absolutely based upon volunteers and who wants to join. And in fact, we've been understaffed on our RAB because we haven't had all the volunteers we want. So we've got a couple of folks over here who are covering hundreds of units for their area in multiple neighborhoods, as opposed to, at the end of the day, I would love to have a representative from every single neighborhood we have. And there's no rules or regulations that say we can't. It really is a matter of just having somebody volunteer and interest. So if you were interested.
So my favorite Alabama fan, Michelle LaSalle, has the historic neighborhood. Go Dogs. So if you have somebody, I would just contact her.
Okay.
And then she can, if you have folks that are interested in it, just, yeah. It doesn't, it's a volunteer. It's not anything that it was meant. It was just there wasn't anybody that was willing to volunteer for a position. So if we do have volunteers that live in the historic district, it'd be great.
All right. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Sir, I'm going to go ahead and, I don't think we have any more questions here from the floor. I'm not tracking anything from DPW, so I think we're good to go tonight, and I'll just pass it back to you for your closing comments, sir.